Hey everybody, Drakos here. Look, before we get into this week's episode of EUphoria, I wanted to take a sec to sit down and talk a little bit about some of the changes that we tried in winter and the direction we're taking for the podcast in spring. So for those of you who've kept up, in winter, we swapped to an episode every other week with more long-standing topics, less focused on our week-to-week game coverage. Now, we felt like we had a pretty cool idea here, but ultimately we didn't communicate it super well. And we left a lot of you behind in terms of our regular viewers who wanted to hear week to week, hey, which team is doing well, which team is doing poorly. And unfortunately for us and for you, we also made the decision to do this in a split where KC won the entire thing. So yeah, we messed up in winter. Now I've worked on this podcast for a long time and it's always kind of been between two identities. On the one hand, a show that wants to talk about every single week of LEC, and on the other hand, a show that wants to talk about the deepest, innermost stories, the cool stuff that our pros have going on, etc. And sometimes we've been good about walking that line, and this was a case where we went in one direction with a lot of intention, and it really didn't pan out. So to all of you who stuck with us through that, I just want to say I'm sorry. We kind of messed up there. So starting from this episode, although this episode will air Friday. So after this episode, we're going to be having an episode every single week on Thursday, normal time, just as you'd expect it. And we're still going to be having pro player guests, but our focus, rather than long-standing deep topics, will kind of return to what it used to be, which is week-to-week coverage. Yeah, we'll still be bringing on cool players, but it won't be deep dives into their history. It'll be more thoughts on current matchups, current teams, and the active state of the league. Again, thank you so much to the people who left comments and called out kind of this direction shift and what felt good and what felt bad. I really appreciate that kind of feedback. So while we won't get quite as many opportunities to deep dive, you will be seeing us every single week. We will still be having a ton of pro player guests. And overall, I'm pretty excited about the direction that we've chosen to take. So again, thank you so much to the people who called out what they didn't like, who gave that feedback. And to those of you who have stuck with us when maybe we weren't on top of our game in terms of communicating those changes. And I hope that this message, along with the tweets, et cetera, that we sent out, are the start of a positive change where, hey, you can keep us honest and accountable. We want to make a show that you guys like to watch. And so for spring, we're sticking with this direction. We'll be talking about the week-to-week coverage. I've got Dagda and Jackspektra just around the corner to kick us off. And we're really excited to see all of what LEC Spring 2025 has to offer. And we hope that you will join us for every single step along the way. So sorry for rambling too much. Don't want to take too much time out of the start of your podcast. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to EUphoria 2025, Episode 5, that's ahead of Spring Week 1 in the LEC.
We bring you up to date on all the things you can expect coming into this spring split, including talking about some hopes we might have, and also some cheeky bets. That we
a little cheeky bet, little explanation, a reminder of kind of what the format looks like, and some of the most exciting matchups using the brilliance, the focus, the knowledge of our guest, Jackspektra. Woo! Let's get into it. All right, boys, here we are, brand new season. New episode of the podcast, Drakos Dagda, joined by Jackspektra. Oh, Jackspektra. Jakob Spookter.
Hello.
As I like to call him.
Yeah. Where did that start? You just kind of decided one day.
Where did that start?
Yeah.
I think it was something about, like, I told you one of the nicknames my mom gave me.
Yeah. And then I just took it to an extreme.
Yeah.
Well, there's no bullying like giving you new nicknames. We gotta kind of keep you.
Ask Gibbers.
Yeah, okay. So, in my defense, I asked GB Goldberg if I could give him nicknames, and he said yes.
Yeah, that is true.
But
he already has the nickname GB,
so it was GB, and then it was Gibgob, Gibbers.
Gibgob.
Gibgob.
Oh, Gibgob. No,
Gibgob, not Gibgod. And kind of just anything that involves G and a B, you can kind of make.
Any relation,
Yeah.
Yep.
Gonbor. Gonbor calls for aid. Look, I'll do anything. All I'm saying is, let yourself be open to nicknames. I think that's the moral of the story here. But it's good to be back. We just got out of the weirdest improv session of our life in an effort to improve our team bonding. We did some improv, and it was
good. It was fun.
I mean, you two are father and son now, and I thought that was very dramatic for a while.
Yeah, he's a dying king.
Yeah.
I was a dying king.
Giving me none of the wealth.
Yeah, letting him know that the will had nothing for him, and it all went to his sister, despite his many great heroic deeds. So I hope it's not personal.
No, and I hope it's not a symbolism for
anything that's coming your way.
Yeah.
What do I have that you think I'm going to give you?
Experience. a wealth of experience.
Nothing else.
Why do I feel like this is a job interview? Like he's just trying
Where
to
do you
find-
see yourself in
where-
5
yeah, where-
years?
What is your 5-year plan, Mr. Spectra?
To grow.
Can you just say like synergy and alignment once or twice?
No.
We'll circle back.
Kingdom, dynasty.
Kingdom Dynasty. Oh yeah, I like that little narrative buzzwords. Look, that time is over. We don't do buzz-worthy narratives here,
Oh,
but we can do hyperbole.
yeah.
Because look, to kick things off, we've got a new segment. It's called Coping or Hoping. We're going to look at 3 statements and talk about whether they make sense. So are we hoping, it's realistic or pragmatic, or are they ridiculous and we're completely coping? You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
You ready, both of you?
Yeah.
All right. Statement 1. KC making first stand finals is the start of a new era of LEC being truly competitive internationally.
I start here.
Yeah. What do you got for me?
It's like a little bit of coping, a little bit of hoping, but that's like the best mix, like where it's like there's some hopium in there mixed with the copium.
Do you want to expand?
So,
What if I said nothing? What if I just said both sides could be right?
no, but that's how I feel, Like
Yeah.
sometimes the world is gray, sometimes that's boring, but that's how it is. But I do think that what Casey showed in the latter half of the tournament was good, but I don't think like it's gonna mean that EU is now back to 2019, 2018 standards. But it's better than what we showed last year. So in that sense, yeah. But is it a return to glory? Not yet.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same. Like, if LPL continues to send only top esports, well, then maybe we can be competitive. But like the second we go up against LCK, Hamwa kind of just had
Yeah.
us. It was-
Also, if they send 2 teams, we're also in trouble,
Yeah,
right?
exactly,
Like,
yeah.
second there's more than one LCK and LPL team at any given tournament, I feel like our chances of making it to top 2 or top 4 even get
yeah.
exponentially harder.
But like on the flip side, as Jack was saying, I'm excited for KC. Like I was proud of what the boys achieved. Like the fact that they managed to get finals is absolutely sick. And especially after what was not the best of starts, I think to come back in and say, no, we're going to rally ourselves. We're going to play way better. Like their team fighting was sick. Like I was genuinely excited. Like I was sick. I'd only just gotten better. Or actually, no, I was still sick at this stage. So there was me blowing my nose every 3 seconds, a pile of tissues beside me and leaping off the couch as KC managed to get into finals with his newfound energy. So I definitely think we have hope in, hey, we've got several teams now that feel like they can compete at least at international tournaments with like NA and maybe even some of the LPL teams. But from the perspective of like, do I see us making any other finals internationally this year? Maybe that's a bit more of a stretch when LCK and LPL send more than one team.
What amount of success would we have to see for it to feel like a noteworthy moment in time for LEC? Is it like if we go to Worlds, is like multiple teams out of groups? Is it top 4? Is it finals appearances? Like at what point are we like, gone are the days of international disappointment? Now we're finally back on the map. Because it's like G2 had a pretty decent run at MSI last year, again over Top Esports,
Yeah.
which seems to be a growing trend for our region. Shout out Top Esports. I
Yeah.
hope you keep qualifying to
I was going to
international
say the amount
tournaments.
of teams that get places off of top esports not performing well has kind of been there for a few years at this stage.
But like, what do you guys feel like it would take? Like, at what point would you be like, hell yeah, like our regions
semi?
start turning
Like-
around?
For me, it's not necessarily that much about the end result, but it's about like kind of the concept of LEC Seed 1 can compete against LCK Seed 2, Seed 3, Seed 4, and LPL the same. Like, I understand if, for example, KC couldn't beat Humble Life, but if they're going to lose to D plus Kia, T1, Gen G, then that's going to feel like, oh my God. I don't care if you finish quarters or semis. If you can't beat a singular Korean team, it's not good enough.
So victory in a best of 5 maybe is enough.
Yeah. And like,
And is it LPL teams too? Or do we have to beat a Korean team at this
Like
point?
if we could beat BLG, I'd be like, holy crap.
yeah, that would feel good for
Yeah.
sure.
Just Topper on fraud watch. Sorry, Top. Like, no matter how much they win, we're just going to be like, but was it real this time?
But like like at this stage, like I feel bad for Jackie Love and stuff from Top Esports, like complete tangent. But it's like every time since this man has won Worlds, it has
don't know
not
what
gone well. Like
Yeah.
they lose the VCS in that like nail biter where they barely end up killing the Nexus. They haven't looked good at this tournament. They hadn't looked good at what was it, Worlds last year as well. Like it has not been a fun time if you're a Top Esports fan. So yeah, I think it is teams like BLG or like any other top LPL teams to come through, and we got that 5-game win. I'd be like, this is sick. LEC feels like they're back on the map, but until we kind of see that, it kind of feels like a bit of a pipe dream. But I do think the fact that like it feels like now we've got G2, KC, kind of Fnatic all battling for that international spot. It feels inevitable that they just push each other higher and higher, and that we actually can start to compete.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's much more your hope for me. Like last year when I was watching internationals, there was always like, you got this cope going. You're like, oh, maybe we can do something. But it really felt, for me, even going into first stand, when I saw KC first starting to lose, I was like, I guess that's it. We're worse than NA. We're worse than everybody. We're going to be the worst team, you know? But then they turn it around, and then it kind of sparks this hope, because one aspect of it for me that's very important is that it's their first international, and they have that mental perseverance to push through when things are like the hardest. They lost to the teams that they should have won against, and then beat Top Esports and nearly beat, I mean, not nearly, but had a good series against Humble Life. And for me, that mattered a lot in the sense that usually teams just crumble. I feel like EU teams insta, like we've seen Fnatic crumble 15 times a world.
I mean, I was ready for the G2 2016 vacation memes, you know, because G2's first international tournament was also terrible. Now, some of that was that I'm pretty sure at the time their bot lane knew they were getting benched before they started playing, but I was ready.
Classic at Worlds,
which is a classic. Well, what the heck? Whoever is getting this stuff out, whether it's managers or teammates or whatever, however this stuff is getting leaked, y'all need to like clean up a little bit. That stuff can't keep happening.
Yeah, I think it's really bad.
Yeah,
like,
it's pretty terrible.
It's one of the things that I feel like, for me, it's been the most disappointing thing that ends up happening repeatedly to teams, that they know that they're going to be broken apart.
Yeah.
And you know that how much impact that has on the mental and how much you want to play together.
But I think Casey's mental, it does continue to be a strong point, which isn't something I'd expect to be saying, to your point, in their first international tournament with so many young players, because it was the same in the Game 5 of Fnatic, where I was really wondering if they were going to show up at all. Now, admittedly, Fnatic sprinted it in draft pretty hard. But then Vladdy like played like he was completely unfazed in the first 2-3 levels of the game, even when there's a random level 2 Volibear wandering into his lane. Which again, you know, questionable. I don't want to like oversell this, but I do think that that's one of the things that gives me the most hope, is that KC withstood that test, managed to persevere. Were they done or given some gifts courtesy of the format? You know, did they get a little bit fortunate? Yeah, but they also stepped up in their first series, managed to make the finals. So overall, I think the hope is justified. I think I'm going to say it's hoping. I don't think it's coping at all.
I especially, like, we were talking about this in the meetings we had earlier today. It's like, I feel like KC comes back with a hunger now, where it's like, hey, look, we've had that first taste of international, and we see the places where we could have competed with some of the best teams in the world. Now, even whether they were there or not, it doesn't matter. I think it's the fact you can see how you can get there. If I'm a player, I'm coming back off of that and going, oh my God, let's get into this. I want to show the world that we can actually fix these mistakes and now level up to be able to compete with them. And I think that's the sick part, is I feel like KC now have a bit more of a diagram as to how they can get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think also, like, for me, the hope for this year would be that LEC could be the second best region again. I think that would be like the most realistic but still hopium kind of take. Because also one of the things that was cool about KC was they were perma-leaking in their voice comms that they were winning scrims against all the LPL teams, which further kind of gives hope that I think there's a real possibility that, in general, if you watch much LPL, I haven't watched that much, but they're a lot worse than LCK these days. And that sucks for LPL fans and the general kind of competition against LCK. But if we can sweep in and get that number 2 spot, I mean...
I'm not saying we should capitalize on their weaknesses, but mayhaps it's time. Look, I wouldn't lie. It would be nice to be number 2, or at least be in a conversation of fighting there on a little bit better footing.
I'm just saying, we're going back into a fighter meta, and Bin exists. So, I mean, this is going to be a bit of a tough ask.
Yeah, look, one step at a time. Yeah. It's hoping. It's definitely not the truth. It might not be cope, but we're on the journey. We're making the next steps. Statement number 2, Nisqy joining Vitality will make them a top team. For those of you who missed it, Nisqy has joined Team Vitality as a support, replacing Hillisang, the professor himself. Is this hope or cope that Nisqy joining is going to be the key to Vitality's?
Well, what is a top team? That's the
run to the top. Why don't? Well, you want you to find. You're the first to respond. What would
I'd say top team is like top 3, top 4,
and then so am I hoping or coping? If I were to say this,
coping, because like it will be his first split as support, and the rest of the team is fine, but I don't think they will beat G2 Fnatic or KC. Maybe the 4th spot is the most like possible, but even then, I think it's coping.
I think it's coping to all hell completely. I think the fact that Niski existed as a player that liked to roam and link up with jungler, I think is actually going to do him a lot of good when it comes to like how he can interact with his jungler and move around the map and all that, yada, yada, yada. But I think the actual issue is that you still have to, learn the role, right? And was it you said earlier that like, or someone in the meeting earlier was like,
I said
the man has been
support
playing
is
it
easy.
well, yeah, you said that. We'll get to that in a second. It was like 20 days he's been playing the role. It's like, the man has not existed in the bot lane for a particularly long period of time. So I don't expect him to come in and go, all right, lads, we're winning summer. Like this is not, or should not be the goal with Vitality anyway. So I think from that perspective, give him time. He can get better and like learn how to get your correct engages off as a support, especially if you have to be the premier engage, and then like even learning like reset timers or when it's safe to actually like leave your AD carry or where you need to be on the map and that kind of stuff, I think does take time. And you can always say, hey, look, it's possible for your jungler to just be like, hey, look, you need to reset now, or someone needs to tell you. But I think there is also an instinct that we see from top supports in our league that doesn't just innately come into swapping to the role.
I think his tempo understanding should be pretty good, because usually like a lot of times supports are really bad at that, and like the other roles kind of have to call it out. At least that's my experience. I think the biggest things I could see him struggling with is laning phase and warding. Like it's hard to understand when you can go for vision alone versus when you need to call people. Like Hylissang, for example, was that type of player that would never call people, go alone, sometimes die, a lot of times die. And you also have players that do the opposite, that they just are always scared. And that's also a problem, because then you never get vision in times where you could kind of fake it and do it alone. And I do think the laning phase, as you said, like 20 days is not enough to learn all the matchups you need to know, the champion pool you need to have. So I think he's going to struggle a little bit, but not like an insane amount, but not going to come in as a top support.
Because yourself and Finn had this, whereas like support super easy, right? Why is all the retired players not just going to support then? Why is it that like it's only Niski that's making the move?
I mean, I think it's...
And Reckless.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, we do have some, right? We have Reckless, we had Sven going to support, finding some decent success. I
guess Core, technically, if you want to go back far enough, but I don't think anyone thinks of him as anything other than a support at this point.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is usually when people want to retire, it's because they kind of go tired of the lifestyle and the constant grind. Because even though support is an easier role, you still need to put the same hours in. You need to play the same scrims. You need to play the same solo queue. It's still going to be like all day, every day.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're burnt out or tired of that lifestyle, or you feel like you don't have it in you anymore, well, I think also maybe there's a little bit of pride to a lot of people. Like they enjoy playing their role, so they don't want to swap. Because for example, me, I love playing ADC. I don't want to swap, even if I could.
Would you be a support? Would you ever consider playing starting support?
I don't think so. I would get bored, I think. I like playing ADC, and it's like fun.
Fair enough. That's respect to you for being so committal. I'd be like, I'll get the bag. Tell me where to go.
I mean, anybody has
Kaliss rolls up. I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
Okay, but like, if Faker asked me if I wanted good support on T1.
It's just, I think I've seen a lot of AD carries, well, not just AD carries specifically, but players move to support and they're fine. They're not good supports, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where I kind of disagree with it's easy to shift into the support meta. Because like I've seen like Wink in the LPL swapped, moved in on IG. He just wasn't good on engages, wasn't good on his timings. And even after like 2-3 years, he's now getting to a position where he's okay with it. I think the exception that proves the rule is kind of Core JJ, who kind of slipped into that role easily. But Sven had struggles as well when he started to move in. There was a huge amount of questions around like champion pool. Could he play engages? Like what did he look like? I think there's still issues. And I'm not saying that Niski in time couldn't become great. But I don't think it's as easy as just like plug and play when it comes to the support role.
I agree, but I do think he has like the perfect kind of traits and personality to be a support. He sacrifices himself. He brings great type of vibe and energy to a team. And I think he's also the type of person that doesn't mind looking bad to set up fights and just dying for the greater cause, which I think is the type of mindset you need to have as a support. So for example, like I think if random ass example, but for example, if Vithio went to support, I think that would be a disaster, because he's a much more selfish player. He wants to play for his own lead. And I think a lot of carry players, they are like that they just want to play for themselves. So if they try to play for support, not only do you have to learn a new role, you have to change how you think about the game. I think Niski already thinks about the game kind of as a support when he played mid lane.
Yeah, fair.
So what is the value proposition here? Your Vitality, you're like, Niski. What we need is Niski, former mid laner, currently streaming.
I think it's more like we need someone other than Hilly who's on the market.
Yeah, so what's the value? Because like we've talked about, like he might be good, he might be okay, but like what if you're Vitality, why are you bringing Niski in? Is it just you need someone who's going to be more reliable? You need someone who's, I mean, like what is the actual? You're making a face right now. Like
it's a harsh reality. There was a tweet from Jack Troll that I think said it pretty well. He was like, at the first part of the tweet was like, how can Vitality do this? They're just getting a mid laner with no experience on support. But then he wrote under, but the truth is, all of you guys suck way too much, so they have to do it. And it's like if you look at the ERL support landscape right now, there's not, like there was Paurus, who was like a standout performer, but other than that, there's not really any that attractive players.
Well, and also it seems like if you still have this as a pretty young roster, all things considered, right? Like Carzzy is your last real veteran player, and not to take away from Carzzy's attitude or presence in a team environment, but he has not struck me as like the leader veteran type of voice. And maybe he is, right? And it kind of goes against his goofier interview personality. But I think the thing about Niski is he brings the vibes. He can't be goofy, but people have spoke highly about, his communication. And also, as you highlighted, this is a TF Taliyah player. If anyone knows how to give someone else a lead, it's a guy who spammed roaming mid laners for a lot of his career.
Also, I just think it's great for Chayek. Like you've got now a guy who's been a veteran mid laner for years, as you've just entered the league. That maybe he is playing support, but at least you can have that discussion. You have someone that you can easily talk to. Like I think that does just help on helping you adjust into the league as well.
Yeah, I think you could play 1v1s, and also just like in general when like Niski has a lot of knowledge, and I think he should be able to share that knowledge pretty well. For me, the biggest thing that I'd love to see from Niski is like what we saw from the Perks role swap was that he brought unique picks to the role that other ADCs wouldn't play. For me, that is like the barometer of success for a role swap. If you can bring in something, a new type of flair or a new champion, like for example, Perks played Zoe, he played Yasuo. I would love to see something like Niski Gragas or Niski some mage or something like that to showcase that one support champion pool can be like more than what people consider the norm, because it's always like the norm is here, but then when someone does something different, it's like, oh, we can actually do that. So I would love to see that, but that also requires you to first be really good on the fundamentals and the actual normal matchups, so that you know when to bring out these niche picks.
So we're getting Kerry as LeBlanc for Niski in the bot lane,
Look, now's a heck of a time. They
But
got
now
a lot
it's
of
played
the cool
better
visuals. Yeah, there you go. An actual mid laner. Sorry, Carria. World Championship, not enough. You got to be native to the role, to the champion. Okay, so what's a realistic expectation for Vitality? Top 4, maybe feeling like a little bit of a stretch. We'll see how well Niski fits in. But if you're like, you want to tell Vitality fans playoffs, which is top 6 now. Remember, we're doing single round robin best of 3, and then top 6 go through. So playoffs, top 6.
Yeah, I think it's like they are battling for the spots in top 6. Like I think Giant X losing closer does hurt. So I'm not really sure how they're going to end up stacking up. But like you've still got Movistar, Koi, I expect to be there, KC, G2, Fnatic. And then where does BDS land in the whole string of things? So I think there's still questions on where, but I think they should scrape in.
Yeah, I think BDS should be better, but then the 6th spot should go to either
that's what I think. Yeah,
Vitality or Giant X, but Giant X kind of lost their jungler, so I think Vitality should be aiming for playoffs.
Let's see. All right, so it feels like some mostly Cope there, and I'm inclined to agree. I do like Niski, but we'll see if he can make the transition down and be an adequate replacement for Hilly, because you're also missing out on the Hilly highlight moments. That's the other thing. It's like, you're missing out on the lowlights for sure, and there were more lowlights.
There were some highlights. We casted some highlights.
Yeah,
it was
there
crazy.
were some insane highlights still, and obviously the percentages have gone further and further against Hilly in the last split. So I understand why they made the swap, but you're also missing out on those highlight moments, which have won a lot of games. Last statement: G2 will not win an LEC final in 2025. Coping or hoping?
I think completely coping. I think they're going to win either spring or summer.
Sorry, this also sounds really mean to be like, I'm hoping G2 don't win. Why did you set up this?
I didn't think about the phrasing.
G2 will never find success again. I'm hoping that.
I'm hoping for it.
We will watch the light drain from Caps' eyes in slow motion. Coping or hoping? No. Obviously, the sentiment is, well, I mean, the question basically is, are G2 going to win a final again, right? And you already said ridiculous. They're winning the next one, spring, summer, what?
I think they're going to win at least one title this year.
Yeah.
Why? Because they had completely fumbled the bag. We got a 3-0 final, boys.
And we had a 3-1 like before that against KC. So
thank you for your condescending voice.
well, you started it.
No, that's fine. It's good.
I think it's just hard to say, like, you look at what G2 were like at the start of the split, and then you look at them -1 day from the end of the split, and it looks significantly better, right? And I think this is the team that will continue to grow. And especially as we start to like shift in towards what I'm hoping well, obviously there's no lane swaps and stuff, but I think you start to open up like more picks for BB, you can be more creative. I think this is where it can start to change things for them. And I think even just the time off, they're going to have come in, they're going to be working hard behind the scenes. You know what G2 are like, especially like this was the first time they'd lost the split in the last 6 splits.
Yep.
Like G2 are going to come in and just be like, nope, nose to the grindstone. We're making this work. And so it's hard not to feel like they're going to come in all guns blazing, but it is not an easy task to take down KC. But so I don't think it's like a guarantee that G2 will win an LEC final. I think it's a, hey, no, you actually have real competition here, but you're not out of the running for it.
Would you put G2 above KC on a tier list if you had to make one now? Like if you couldn't just put them in the same tier, which is the cop-out that we'd all probably do for fear of retribution, like what?
No, I think it's too hard after our first time.
I mean, I feel like that would be weird because they did like KC won everything that they could, right?
Sure.
But I do think it would be wrong to say that G2 is like out of the running now.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'd say they're better than KC, but I think they might be better than KC this split. But my head is like, it feels wrong to put the team that lost as the better team. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But it's also like, because I think that what you hit on there is really important, where I think KC are probably going to be exhausted. Like they're just coming back off of, hey, we finish winter, immediately go to Korea, come back. They did what Drakos did, and he's knackered.
Yeah, I got back from the US yesterday at 5 p.m. We're recording this now at like 6 p.m. on Wednesday for those curious, releasing on Friday. I'm a corpse, man.
Yeah. So I can only imagine
to play any League of Legends.
True.
So I think they're going to be in the same boat. So I wouldn't be surprised if they came in with a bit of a slower start as they readjusted the things. But I still think there is a big battle between KC and G2. And I think that's the most excited I've been about this for a while. Because we kind of saw the Fnatic ones. And look, Fnatic, they gave it their all. But it kind of felt like, but G2 kind of have it,
I mean,
right? But now it doesn't feel like that anymore.
Last summer finals was the biggest, like, shit the bed moment for Fnatic that I think
100%.
drained the last little bit of hope out of all of us when they had like the 5 to 8K gold leads 3 games and they just couldn't win.
Tough.
And I'm willing to let them start a new chapter, but that's going to take some blood, sweat, and tears to prove that they've got it in them. And it is a new roster, new players, but still, I think that for Fnatic fans and any LEC fans, it's like, you don't forget a final where you're Wampa stomping all 3 games and then still manage to lose all 3 games.
They do have a little bit of a trader in their midst, though, because now Duffman's come across. So maybe this is where Fnatic...
That's true.
You saw what G2 improved on, like last year when they had Duffman. Maybe this is when Fnatic just sort out their mid game and then they just come in all guns blazing, which makes this statement even less or more coping. I can't... But whatever. It's just the hoping that G2 lose is breaking my brain.
Yeah, I was rude. I didn't mean to set you up to be so rude. That's my bad. When I put that in there.
But yeah, I think it's that it will just become more difficult for G2 to try and win something, but I don't think it's beyond them.
Yeah, I talked a bit to Jankos about Duffman, and he had only good things to say about him as well. So I do think that could help them out a lot. The only problem that I see is like their players are all very veterans, so it's harder to change people's minds. And it's like, if they've been making the same mistakes for years and people can point it, like a fan could tell you what they're doing wrong.
Yeah, but now you have an angry Scotsman in the middle of the ball, and you know.
It's true.
Have you seen The Simpsons? Like, I don't mess with Willie.
That's what he sounds like for sure, too. Really, just really strong accent. Yeah. Okay, final spontaneous statement then. Statement 4. Duffman will solve all of Fnatic's problems.
Coping or hoping?
Yeah, coping or hoping.
Coping.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I know Duff, and I when G2 were prepping for Worlds,
like
Duff, we're tight like that. He's like,
I know Duffy.
You know, me and Duffy, we go back. I spoke to him a lot about the game prior to Worlds last year, and the way he explained concepts was super insightful, and like I have a lot of respect for him and what he's done with the team on G2. But also, like, I think it's a tall task for any one man to come into a project that is so established, especially around, the top 3 roles, with Upset and Mickey being newer, and like change what are probably pretty heavily ingrained habits.
Yeah.
Because Fnatic kind of blew up like 2 or 3 times last year. And while they did always come back, it's still never quite enough to take them across the finish line. And I don't know. Again, I think that the thing I have with Fnatic is obviously they're still a good team. They're still a top 4 team. But can they go the distance? It still just feels like cope until we see it happen.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the pieces are potentially there, but until we actually see it, it's just I don't have faith in it.
I think habits are the key word there. Because even if you have the knowledge of what to change, but you're doing the same thing for so many years, and if you're not able to change those habits, then that's the problem, right?
Yeah, awareness is only one part of the problem. You gotta
actions speak louder than
actions
words.
speak louder, and sometimes you don't even know what the right actions are to take to change those habits. So maybe Duff can shine a light there. We'll have to find out. Thank you for helping on our coping or hoping. Let us know in the comments at home if you think we're coping or hoping, or if there's a statement you want us to hear next time we do that segment. Not sure when it'll be, but we'll find out.
And maybe work on the phrasing so we don't have to just hope that a team is
coping
terrible.
Or hoping. Caps will cry on stage. Coping or hoping. Just, they're all just mean. That's the new game. Is every single. I'm gonna make a way to make sure every single statement is mean every time we do this.
Get me to say sentences that will get me fired eventually.
Just clipped out of context. Yeah, so I'm really hoping that someone will cry. Just tears of sadness. The one thing we haven't done Euphoria for a while is bets, and we're bringing them back. And Jackspektra, you're a bit of a victim here because you're here. Well, you'll probably be back on occasion.
Historically, you do love bets, though.
I do love.
Do I love bets?
You do love bets, yeah. You had that one with Goldberg
but I didn't end up doing it.
Yeah, pulling your leg.
Jack made a bet off air that he did lose, but sadly there was no evidence for the punish.
Well, now you guys are introducing actually slander. This is not true. I don't know.
You have no proof. You have no proof.
Who's
okay?
GB, I only know Gob Gob.
Here's Gobdor. He will call for aid. It'll happen. All right. So the bet is. Which team will be first place at the end of our regular season? So again, best of 3 round robin, 9 best of 3s for each team. Loser has to make an apology video. This is an old classic for you Euphoria OGs. Wearing the kit, so jersey, jacket, whatever, t-shirt also fine, of the team that actually got first. And there could be 2 losers. There will be 2 losers. So each of us has to pick a different team. So even if you agree with someone, you're going to have to go against your own instincts and pick someone else. And we're going to flip a coin or roll a die to see who goes first. And I have a digital die roller. Rob is my witness. We're rolling a fake D6 on Google. I will be 1, 2. No ego, I swear. 3, 4, 5, 6. You ready?
Okay.
All right, 6.
We got a 6. We'll go this way.
So I go first?
You go first.
I'm going to say
first place regular season.
G2.
Explain. People are going to want some context here. So each of us will get like 2 minutes to explain. Yeah. Elaborate.
So I think, as we said, Casey will be tired. And it's classic after you've had an international that you're kind of worse after it. And I also think that with the removal of lane swaps, I think Kalist and Targamas, their laning phase was not the best. I think both Fnatic and G2 spot lane was better. And I also think G2 after losing, for me, I can't imagine Caps losing back-to-back. I just can't see it. I think he's so crazy talented. He's so hardworking as well that he's just going to get use this hunger to just push through and be an even bigger beast.
I will say to support your point as well, like aside from just the KC thing, I think best of 3 is good for a team like G2 who are notorious for dropping a random game here or there. I think they could still drop a random best of 3 where we feel like, hey, they kind of just didn't play up to form. But I think it means that a lot of the random losses they sustained in past regular seasons where they would just sort of, goof a game or maybe not be prepared enough against a lower tier team, I think it's just less likely to happen. Like I think they can lose a game to someone like Rogue, who we don't have the highest expectations of, and then come back and find 2 wins in the rest of the series.
Yep.
Rob, you can't pick G2. Would you have picked G2?
No, because I'm going to mind game the bet.
You're going to mind game the...
I'm going to say Fnatic.
Because I was thinking about Fnatic.
So basically, either Fnatic comes out, has an absolute stormer, and plays out of their mind. We get a 6 storyline of Fnatic after all these years coming back, or I get a free jersey. And
Who
either
said
way,
free jersey? I didn't resolve that in
get
any
it.
part of the thing.
You have to buy a jersey for me because I don't have a jersey for half the
I
team.
also
so.
don't have a jersey.
Yeah,
Okay,
see,
so
so-
as a
yeah,
side note,
yeah.
if the 3 teams
I'd
we
like a
select
jacket,
could
actually.
provide us free jerseys, we will promote for you.
The whole pro kit, maybe.
Okay, so what you're saying is that I didn't do my due diligence from preparing for this bet. All right, we will. That's a good point.
Yeah. So I'm going to say Fnatic.
How are you
'cause-
going to lose a bet and win a jersey? That feels imbalanced.
Yeah, that's why I was like, wait, this is just the easiest layup ever.
It's our first episode back in a return to old format / new format. You can't expose my lack of preparation
I was gonna
like
say,
this, Rob.
you haven't thought through hoping and coping, and you haven't thought this through either.
I will let you know that I have done this podcast for a gajillion years, and I have never once completely thought it through. So that would be poor form to do that now.
But yeah, so I genuinely, I think either way, as an actual realistic how I could see Fnatic winning it is one, I think the building blocks are already there. I think we've seen that when Razork is working on form, he can have an insane early game. I think when Mickey's able to come back into form as well, he's going to be able to work well with him. And I think we started to see that. But it's also the fact, again, we already kind of hit on it. I think Duffman coming in is going to help them a lot. Even if there is habits and issues there, I do think that we could have made that same excuse for people that are on G2, where look, you already have Broken Blade and Caps and all these players that are veterans in their own right, but you had to break them. And Duffman was able to succeed there. So I think in a similar style, he should be able to see that success on Fnatic as well. So I am actually genuinely excited to see if Fnatic can pull the pieces together. But I do think this is kind of like the last rodeo. It's like if you're bringing in some of the top talent when it comes to analysis and helping out behind the scenes and it doesn't work out, I think then you kind of got to look at Fnatic and go, well, how do you get better from here? So I think for Fnatic, this is me putting all my hope into them to see them rise up and be one of the top teams in Europe again. And I'm really hoping that this is the year that they're able to do it.
Yeah, and they are regular season demons.
Exactly.
They are
First
regular
place.
season
I mean, the pieces
demons.
are there.
Yeah.
Right?
All right, you guys ready?
Oh, yeah. Vitality.
No, not Vitality. No, I'm not
KC.
that much desperate. I know
Have
KC
ethics.
would be the obvious choice. And G2 would have been my first choice.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick BDS.
Nah, you are ill.
Okay,
You
here's my-
can't use
guys,
my idea against
We can't have 3 people that don't choose the reigning
Yeah, I was
You
gonna
champion.
say.
can't bully me into picking Casey. I agree. I think they're going to slump. I don't think they'll get first. Are they
I was
going to
just
be?
gonna
I
give
think they're
you
going to
K-
finals. They'll go to finals. I don't think they're
And
gonna
then
be
lose against BDS in the finals.
first. No, regular season.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Regular
Oh, it's
season.
regular season.
Regular season.
Oh, I thought it was win the tournament.
No. Who is first place end of regular season? I'm very sure I said that because
Yeah,
I
you
wrote
did
it
say
down.
that.
BDS. Here's my logic. They figured out how to make use of 113. They're going to return to their roots of never cooking at all. And they're just going to win more games because Fnatic are going to be figuring their shit out. KC are going to be sleepy. And G2 are going to be figuring their shit out. BDS are going to return to the status of being a rock. Will they be fourth by the end of the split? Hell yes, brother. Where else would they be? But they're going to win regular
we
season.
add Vedi in as KC just so we have KC because it feels bad now that we don't have KC.
But we weren't afraid of retribution.
I can do
Rob.
G2 and
Yeah.
KC.
You can't do G2 and KC.
Okay, yeah.
You could have
probably.
picked KC if you believe in KC. You picked the thing.
Well, I picked a really high
I'll
probability.
tell
thing.
you what. I'll tell you what. We'll make it a deal. KC is our secret fourth. KC will be our producer. Shout out to our
no.
producers.
If KC finish it, we all have to do one.
We all have to do it.
Okay,
we all have
sure.
to do it. Yeah.
Is that fine?
Yeah.
But I'm saying
There are
BDS.
3 KC jerseys. God damn.
Yeah. But you be ready for the BDS. I'm telling you. It's
Okay.
coming.
Yeah.
Bro, I'm saying people are
I'll
sleeping.
be shocked.
Paris hasn't had a great time so far. It's been okay.
I thought you
113.
were a BDS hater.
Yeah.
I was. 113. Not a believer.
And then they lost, and now you're a believer.
I'm starting to feel it. Irrelevant. I think this is his
That
time to
makes
shine.
sense.
Back to solo lanes. Nuke and ice stability. It's best of 3. I firmly believe other teams will just throw.
Yeah, their BO3 against Fnatic looked great. They didn't throw at all.
This is so much cope. We need to move this segment up to
Yeah,
the
this is
cope.
cope.
What?
If I firmly believe G2 are going to win it, then
Yeah.
sometimes you got to throw a Hail Mary. You know,
Okay,
you got to
yeah,
try.
yeah.
You got to try some stuff. And I'm going to say this is my Hail Mary. And if I'm right, your apology video
Yeah.
might be good. Might be a rap. We might make a song out of it or something. You know, you might be wrong. KC, do it. Fine. We'll all get a jersey. You know, whatever.
But a BDS
BDS do it. We're both getting jerseys. It's gonna be the best apology video. We're getting Nuke there. It's gonna be great. That's my point. Okay, so reminder for the bet is we've expanded a little bit. Bet is who is gonna be first place at the regular season. Loser's gonna make an apology video wearing kit or merch or whatever from the team that actually got first. So each pick a different team. Our Bonus team is KC. So if KC win, we'll all be wrong, and we'll all have to make a quick apology video together. But
And Drakos is going to write a rap first.
What if Vitality win or Team Heretics win?
no, then that's just crazy. None of us
That's
are crazy.
just crazy.
KC get the consolation because they actually won last season.
Okay,
They get
okay.
the consolation.
Fair
Like
enough.
we're all wrong, but we're not going to make an apology video. We're just going to have to eat that on a
I'm ready for this
personal,
all to be
level.
taken out of context. And
Yep,
people
100%,
in DMs.
100%. So
Yeah.
Jack, you predicted G2. Rob, you predicted Fnatic. I have predicted BDS, which was right and correct, and I'm tired of slander otherwise. This 2 minutes of slander has been too much
You
for
are the
me.
one who slanders them.
No, yeah. Sometimes, yes. But if
That's how
there's
you
one
make a
thing I could
compelling
rely on
story.
them for last year, it was consistency.
It's about that love-hate, you know?
And it's, I'm over love-hate with Fnatic. I don't believe it anymore. G2 is what I would have predicted, and I do believe that KC are going to slump a little bit. Are they going to come back? Yes. But, you know, then you have to pick another horse.
Yeah.
And this is the last horse that I kind of believe in.
No MKOI? No?
Not MKOI, no. It was MKOI at the start of the year. Felt good about that one. Don't feel so good now. Although very good in the video, which will have come out and people will have seen.
Yeah.
So yay. All right. So those are our predictions. We'll check in on the bet over the course of the regular season. Maybe we'll up the ante if it's getting close. You know, maybe if it's Fnatic and G2 and they're neck and neck, or Fnatic and BDS as we clearly expect,
Yeah.
we can double down on these
Or
stakes.
G2 and BDS.
Or G2 and BDS. Or
Yeah.
KC and BDS. Really, any of the
Yeah.
likely 2 front runners for the event. We'll double down. We'll up the stakes. We'll check it out. If there's any other bet ideas that you have at home, feel free to let us know. Otherwise, let's talk a little bit about what's going on and what's coming up heading into spring. If you missed it, I've mentioned a few times already on the show, all best of 3s, no more best of 1s for the entire year. So single round robin, whoop whoop, top 6 to playoffs. And on top of that, Fearless, as everyone in the world basically going to Fearless. The biggest thing to me is top 6 to playoffs, although I know Fearless is also interesting. I just want to say hallelujah on top 6 to playoffs.
Yeah.
Top 8 to playoffs was cool because we got to get to best of 3s sooner, but I am so tired of sending our 7th and 8th best team into playoffs. It was always
feel wrong.
It felt wrong. I'm very excited about top 6 to playoffs, but what are the things that you guys are most excited about coming into spring?
I'm just happy about the combination of Fearless plus lane swaps being gone. I think
That's a good point.
skill back in laning is finally here. And one thing that I've been like harping on and talking about a lot, red side is going to be so much better. Game 2, game 3 of Fearless. And I think it's starting to change that teams are choosing more red side than blue side. And I'm all here for it. I think looking at exciting counter picks for either support or top makes the game so much more exciting.
Expand. Just the counter picks? Is that what makes you excited? You're just
Yeah,
like
'cause
after
it just-
game 1, you just got to start getting weird with it?
Because it's like usually the power picks are taken away in game 1, and then by game 2 and game 3, especially this will be more prevalent in BO5s when it's like game 3, game 4, game 5, where you've already exhausted all your power picks. So it's more about like now we don't have a safe, like if Leona, Rel, and Nautilus are out, what do you blind pick on support? It's like Alistar? Ooh. I guess Rakan as well. Let's say Rakan is out. A Blitzcrank, a blind? What? It's not. You need to get kind of freaky with it, right? In the blind pick department, which means the counter picks can be even better.
Can you just say one more pick name with a weird reaction? Blitzcrank.
Lilia?
Sorry.
Right, and it's the same for top lane. It's like you have the Cassandra champ, you have the Ambassador, you have the Jace, but once those start to go out, then it's suddenly much harder to blind pick, and counter pick gains way more value, which I think makes the series way more exciting.
But it's also just, I feel like people are more willing to cook at the moment.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like since this like 3-month period since the start of the year, I've heard more weird builds come out than I have any other start of a year, right? Like we had the Shogath with the Charlie's Reverie and the Symbiotic Souls. We have this new Darius one that's now about to be nerfed from the jungle. There's like Gallios that are going Symbiotic Souls. There's like even we're starting to see Neferis and Gwens pop up now. Obviously that's patched, but it feels like we're getting a ton of new picks that are just super interesting that we're actually getting to see because all these power picks will be taken out. So I feel like not only is Fearless like helping in that respect, it feels like people are willing to
Yeah, I felt
just
like, for
experiment
example, like
more.
the Pantheon jungle that G2 brought out, it was like game 1, but it was just like a counter that they found. And I feel like you kind of, by having Fearless in scrims, when it comes to the game 3, game 4, game 5, you experiment more with champions. So then when you're suddenly playing game 1 on stage, you now have way more champions to pick from that you normally wouldn't have.
Yeah.
And same with the Warwick top, you know? It was like game 1 of Fearless, but he figured out that that's a good pick into Ambassa.
I do think a certain amount of it has got to be mentality, right? Because like, let's say, for example, we played Fearless, and then randomly Fearless was outlawed.
Yeah.
You know, just randomly. Like, we're like, oh, we're going to China. People are like, you know what? We decided no more Fearless, whatever reason. I still think so many of those weird picks would remain. I think some of it is just these players have been forced to experiment and step outside their comfort zone, because I actually think best of 3 fearless is not that fearless.
No,
it's really not that. Like game 3 a little bit, sure, but like you're still mostly, to your point, like in the meta picks, right? You talked about it with support pools. You can list 6 viable supports. Support is, outside of some niche counters, is probably like fine in a 3-game set of fearless. And so for me, it's just, I think that if you're a coaching staff now, you need to be more aware of those niche comfort picks. You need to be more supportive and like supporting your players and developing those picks. And so we're just going to see them more, even if the draft doesn't call for it, right? I think I love the goofy ass Hanwha draft that they pulled out against CFO with the the Vlad and the Nidalee and the Zed. And I think most of that, like a lot of that wasn't real, but the Vlad stuck around for a few more games. And I do think that that's probably stuff that they prepped and played, even if the context they played it in didn't feel super serious. And I think it will be the same for a lot of our teams, because if your only goal is to get through best of 3, you probably don't need to cook that much. But if you want to go to best of 5, you need to be ready with all of the unique stuff.
Yeah. It also, like, I just feel like I'm getting players playing their signature pick more often. Like, because a lot of the big meta picks get taken out, if you're like you're just excited to see Zeka on Silas's and Akali's and stuff, you're way more likely to get it. Even for like guys like Vladdy. Like, I love watching Vladdy on Victor. I think it's really sick. But is it like blindable game 1 if he's on blue side? No, not really. But there's more likely that I'm going to get those picks. So I think these are the really cool things that Fearless offers now, is you get these people that have dedicated so much time to this one pick, and now there's more opportunity for them to bring to the main stage.
Yeah, I think for me the base thing is just how it changes practice. That it's like, as you said, when it comes to the mentality aspect of it, that it just means that you're getting exposed to so many more champions, and you also just need to have a more open mind. I think most of the pro players that I've played with in the past, a lot of them were very close-minded when it came to champions. They were the good champions and then the bad champions. But now you need to understand more that every champion is situational and can have value, because you're going to have to go down the list. When it gets to game 4, game 5, you don't have those good champions anymore, but you're still going to have to win the game. And then when you actually play then those champions, you figured out that, oh, they're not as bad as I thought. Or in this situation, they're actually really OP. Like the Vladimir, like you said, it's like if they have a low damage and low CC comp, Vladimir just runs the whole team.
Were you a cook when you played pro? Do you cook up?
He's an 80
but
carry.
I got really mad when people tried to like condense 80 like champions into just being bad or good. And I'm a very firm believer that nearly every champion in League of Legends is situationally strong. Some are less situational, and that's what's make them OP.
I was like, I got a list here. Should we go through them? You want to talk about? Because Zed to me still does not seem very good. Personal take here.
Zed is definitely on the more situational. I think most of like
that
the
situation is you're Chovy and you're playing against a mid laner that you're better than.
Yeah. I mean, most of the solo queue assassins, I think, are harder to make work in competitive play. But even then, how you can then phrase it is that these champions require chaos, which you can find in solo queue, but you don't find in competitive. Which is, for example, what makes Aphelios really strong in competitive, but weak in solo queue. He sucks in chaos, but is very good in a slow, stable game. So in competitive, where the game is normal, you have a front-to-back team fight, he's great. In a game where enemy Akshan gets 5 kills level 1, Aphelios can't do anything.
I like that. Well said. How do we feel about the patch? I mean, we've had, obviously, 5 was the big patch coming into first stand, which was removal of lane swaps, which is remaining.
It's huge, yeah.
And now we've had a lot of small balance adjustments. Gwen, solo queue terror, Nefiri, solo queue terror. Anything that we're like super jazzed about coming back into this. Also, the removal of lane swaps for us domestically does mean a lot for some of our teams.
Nefiri, that W change is silly.
Yeah.
Because the fact so for anyone who doesn't know, her W now gives her invulnerability, which means that when you terror dive, you can tap W and all your dogs come out after the invulnerability. So you can make the dive happen, tap W, and immediately lose tower aggro. So you're a Maokai that deals damage.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I only played a few games into it, but like the win rate went up by like 6-7%, and she got hotfixed already, but the hotfix was pretty light.
Yeah.
And I don't think, I mean, she's definitely more of a solo queue-esque champion, but I could definitely see her
We've seen
working.
her 4 games in LPL, I think, so far. It's definitely over the last like few, I think it's like Kanavi's picked it up and he's played it 2 or 3 times, and then there's like another guy who's picked it up. I think it was banned against FPX or by FPX, I can't remember. But so it's definitely there.
Yeah.
But I'm curious if it will get picked up, because I think it takes a certain player and a certain team style to be able to make it function as well. So it'll be interesting to see what teams are able to do.
How's the Gwen prio been? I think that champion is also so big.
Yeah, it's like first pick.
First pick or ban? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, the champion used to have like a really bad laning phase and insane scaling, but now it's just like a good laning phase and still pretty damn insane scaling.
Because that was the thing. Like initially, the reason Gwen, I remember falling off in the top lane was because her E changed. So the E was you get the increased range and then you can like auto attack them down and it makes things super easy. And they increased the cooldown that a huge amount.
Yeah.
So now they've just reverted it back to being really short. So you're just able to go for these quick trades using that increased attack range over and over and over. So it just makes it really difficult to deal with her in lane.
Yeah. I just remember her level 1 being OP and Odoamne complaining about all the time. She just E-start and just absolutely ruin you. The dash, the auto attack range increase. She's 13 games played currently, 70% win rate, 76% win rate, so 10-3. Flandre.
What's her presence though? Probably nearly 100%, no?
She's the second most picked top laner. Overall presence, she's in the top 10. Okay. So pretty ready to see Gwen back on stage, which resident LEC fan Gwen cosplayer.
You know who that's
excited.
very good for? You're gonna guess, no?
No, I wasn't gonna guess. I thought that was a rhetorical question. Who is it really good that Gwen
like
is
the best
playable?
team for? MKOI, because Mirwin is the best Gwen EU, I'd say.
You think he's the best Gwen EU? Why?
Yeah.
Just because he's one of the few people to play it?
Well, yes, and I played with him, and his Gwen was magical. And also in the few games that he has played it in the LEC, he has a different aura.
I mean, it would be really sick if the champ got to do something before 3 items. And there's no shade to Mirwin. It's just like every Gwen game is like, she has a 2,000 gold lead. She still isn't doing anything. It's 35 minutes. Oh, there she is.
It's like she's down 1,000 gold. Now she's getting
now everyone is dying. Okay, well, I don't know what we were waiting for. It's not clear to me if it's a gold or a level or what, but I guess she hurts now and everyone's dying. But yeah. Are you ready for her?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be great.
MKOI? Are you a believer?
No.
Oh, okay. You just brought up Mirwin's Gwen, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a believer in Mirwin, but the rest of the team not so much, maybe. I mean, the bot lane is okay. The jungle is okay. Mid lane is
okay.
So and
why don't maybe it's just the split where NA disappoints. Maybe this
I think the thing is like
hold on, let's transition gracefully. That's it for our updates. This coming up this week, we have must-watch matches. The games that we think are the most important to watch. And you know, kind of there's a lot of hype matchups coming to this first week. We do have triple best of 3 day 1 this Saturday. So broadcast is starting at 2 p.m. Berlin time, just so people know. I'll say it again before the end of the episode. But why don't we just start with MKOI versus KC then? Huge match of the week, obviously. French, Spanish, blah, blah, blah.
I could see them winning that. Because that is like...
Can't...
Listen,
I'm sorry.
Listen.
I'm sorry. I tried to segue so you could have a discussion
Mouth
here.
closed, ears open, okay? Because we talked about how KC would be tired, jet lagged, all that stuff. This is the most tired they should be with the least amount of practice into an MKOI that should have grinded for a long time because, you know, they fell out pretty early. And Gwen is insanely OP, so it's perfect for Mirwin. And Jojo has probably improved, right? And
why? You did not sell that statement well at all.
I was gonna say you weren't a salesman in past life.
Jojo has probably improved, right? Question mark. I feel bad for this guy. Like, we wanted him to talk shit when he came to the region, and now no matter what he does, he's gonna get roasted.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, should it be any other way? He's Canadian, no? It's NA. You know, we gotta. The rivalry has to stay.
All right, fair enough. You know, take it out.
I think, like, unironically, they can win due to the factors that I said. I think, like, it's really, really hard for KC to go from a patch. Like, did you guys follow Los Ratons a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Bit, yeah. They struggled a ton going from perma lane swaps into 0 lane swaps.
Yeah.
And had, like, a week of scrims where they struggled. And for KC, you're both having that and... Wait, no, they're not.
No, they're not. They played first stand. Where are you going, bro? Where are you going?
Do you want to come back? Man,
do you want to
exit
Back over here.
KC have had zero experience playing on no lane swaps. They have not put up any notable international performances. They've not taken down an LPL team. How could they possibly stand a chance? They couldn't even take a single game off Harmon Life East. Wait, okay,
they're not even in the LEC.
They're not even in the LEC.
What's a KC?
EMEA Masters. Who are KC? Who is Kometo?
Blue Wall.
Okay, now that we're Back
to reality.
So we're gonna scratch that point from the record.
We're gonna cut that out.
Your Honor, please scratch that from the record. Everyone, please forget that he said
So
that.
then it's only the argument of the fact that they're rusty
sleepy.
and not sleepy, bro. They're not like an EP kitten. They're just like tired after a long grind, while MKOI is fresh, you know?
Yep.
And that also means that MKOI should have cooked more picks up for the patch and be more ready for Fearless.
Look, I can see. I'm a big fan of the MKOI is going to hit the ground running narrative. We used it last year when they hit the ground running in winter, and I've been holding on to it ever since. And at every opportunity, I'll tell you how good they're going to be at the start of a split.
Yeah.
I can believe it, but at the same time, I mean,
all I'm going to say is, I think if MKOI were to win against KC, right now is the best time.
that's fair. I think that Vladdy's kind of the go to mid lane right now, though.
Yeah, he's kind of insane.
He is, yeah.
And I think that's tough. I don't think JoJo had the best split. And while we mentioned this before earlier in the day, I don't think we talked about it on the podcast. KC's 2v2 without lane swaps anymore has looked a little bit rough. I still think they're fine in that 2v2.
They're still definitely better than MKOI bot lane now.
So is it just top diffy? Like, what are we betting on here? I know it's an oversimplification to put it down to a single matchup, but like how are just better read on the meta, more unique
meta
draft?
read plus like synergy kind of off maybe for KC because they're kind of off everywhere, and then
You don't sound like you believe it as much as you did when you thought that KC hadn't played without lane swaps.
well, I mean sometimes reality and imagination collide.
Yeah.
But
Is this copium or hopium? Add one more statement. Look, I think it could be close. Do you agree, Rob, that this is the best chance that MKOI have? Does it get better? Is there a chance for it to get better?
No,
from
I
here?
don't think it gets better because I think there is like the start of the split is probably the best time for an upset because teams are still getting used to the patch. They're still getting used to a lot of different things. So if you want to beat them, it is now. It's just I don't think MKOI can. Like I think the KC have shown that even when they for me, when you get to be a really, really good team, you're able to have these moments where you can go 3-4K goal behind, but still see the window to try and bring it back.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we got to see from KC and even like the internationals, and we've seen moments from them like that, which say to me that this is a team that is becoming one of the great teams. So even if they do end up losing in the early game from MKOI, I think KC's team fighting looks spectacular. I think they should find windows to come back into it. So I think it's unless MKOI just absolutely blow them out of the water in the early stages, sure. But it's like we're into best ofs.
It's best
now.
of.
Yeah. So
if it was a best of one, I'd 100% be on the MKOI train.
Exactly.
Best of three is tough.
Yeah.
Tough
Over
sell.
the course of 3 games, I just don't see them being able to do it twice. And I think KC and that are just the more solid team. The person I would look at, going back to your question, is maybe EUphoria can try and spark some magic for them where it's like he just takes over in the early game. But even against Yike, like that is such a difficult thing to do. So I don't really see a one lane that just goes, if you win, then you can take over the game. It feels like it has to be everyone in MKOI stepping up to try and beat them.
yeah, I agree. I think if by some miracle,
Welcome back, bud.
if some miracle, JoJo caps Vladdy, then it might be over for KC.
If JoJo gaps Vladdy. All
Yeah.
right. That's just a bold prediction.
Well, it's not a
It's
prediction.
a prediction. It's just a kind of
It's an if.
It's a non-committal
Do you want to
statement.
bet on it?
Would you like to
No.
an apology video? Anything?
No.
You pay for someone's flight to Canada?
All I'm saying is they could win.
They
But I'm
could.
not going
That's
to
all
put
on the
money
JoJo
on it
bet.
or a bet on it.
I could grow wings and fly out of the studio.
Well, that's stupid.
Not here to connect the dots for you. Let the people at home do it. Anyway, it is plausible. I think it's a tough battle for MKOI. I hope that they can just to shake things up because I do really like this roster and I want to see them do more. But based on what we've seen so far, I think the KC EP debuff may not be enough. First matchup, though, of the entire season is Fnatic versus GX. Fnatic with Duff, as we mentioned earlier, coming in, new coaching staff, might be able to make the difference. And GX, jungle swap out, which Closer wanted to take a break, if I remember correctly, and Isma now coming in. How are we feeling about this one, boys?
From what I've heard, they're a lot worse in scrims.
GX or Fnatic?
GX. And I think scrims were one of their
They were scrim gods last
They were
split,
scrim gods, but also I think they relied on that a lot for their confidence. So then it's like, if you were the scrim gods, but your result was kind of mid, and now you're not great in scrims anymore, it's like, Oi, where are,
Are
we
you
going
the
now?
goat on
Yeah.
stage now? This is the thing I love about EU scrims. Is
I
it's
don't
like
think it swaps like that,
the
bro.
no, what are you talking about, bro? Scrims are like the land of confirmation bias and superstition.
Sure, another stage gods. That's
Now
what
they're
they're telling
stage gods.
themselves.
That's what they'll tell themselves if they lose scrims and they perform.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what do you think about Isma, Dagda?
I'm just not convinced. Like, I think first, I just think it's a downgrade. I
Yeah.
think Closer like could actually have moments where he was able to kind of keep control and be a bit of a voice in the team. But I don't see Isma doing that in the same regard. Even last year, just wasn't able to find that success either. So I think for Giant X, you're now losing kind of what was at least some portion of the stability that you had in the early game. And Isma brings a little bit more chaos. So losing that, I don't think you're going to get these early leads. And I also don't see Isma fixing the problem with Giant X, which was their mid game, where they just didn't know how to play through leads.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
So even if they get the leads, I think you still have the same problem as Giant
But
X.
Isma is kind of a funny story that he kind of ended up falling up because he got kicked from SK
Yeah,
into KC Blue, but then immediately picked back up again to a better team.
Yeah.
So it's like,
I
it
mean,
was a good thing for him.
I do wonder what Isma will look like on a fresh roster. Like, I kind of want to give him a clean slate because I know that like things were tough on SK and that he's had a. I mean, it's been a kind of tumultuous career on SK because they did have some high highs last year. But at the same time, I look at like Lot, who I think surprised us, Jackie's, who is still a bit chaotic,
I'd say he disappointed us.
disappointed.
possibly.
But yeah, and I also just think overall, like
Although
still
we had
needs-
like high expectations for him.
yeah.
So it's not like he was really bad, but it's like, I want him to be one of the best mid laners in EU, and he wasn't that last split.
We wanted the same level of growth that you saw from like split 1 to 2 last year. That
I want him to be
Yeah.
like
you want that
Vladdy.
to continue up to like Vladdy's
Yeah.
status, and I don't think that he's had that same stride in terms of development. And I look at Noah and Jun as like they can be a stable bot lane.
They
but
were really solid.
They
I don't
and they
think
were really
had
solid.
Really any
no.
bad games.
I'm saying that like I think they can be a stable bot lane, but they're not what I would describe as a rock for the team. And like I really think the Closer was a guy who helped hold stuff together. And while I do still think this team has a ton of individual talent and probably a higher skill ceiling with Isma than they did with Closer, it's like I don't think what they needed was more firepower or more potential firepower. I think they needed a role player.
Consistency, yeah.
I think they just needed a veteran shot caller. Like,
Yeah. Sure.
there's no one on this team that I look at and go, "Hey, you're the one who's gonna like call the
Yeah.
smart map movement in the moment." Excuse me, sorry, in that mid game. And I think that's the biggest problem for this team is that like without that voice, I just don't have faith in them. Because even when they get leads, it feels like they don't really know what to do with them, and they're not able to set up a team fight properly around an objective or around a dragon. And when you're looking at Isma, is Isma the guy to fix that? No. And I don't expect him to come in and try and be the one to suddenly innovate entirely as to how Giant X approach their mid game. So for me, I think Giant X have just gotten into a worse position now because they've lost at least what was somewhat of a voice and Closer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't speak too much to Isma's comps, but when I did some tryouts last year for Giant X, I noticed that Jackie's and Lot were pretty quiet. Like they just
Yeah.
talked about their own lane, but not much about like in general macro things. So I think Isma, and it's like the hard part is you'd also want Jun, but because of the language barrier, I think that's always going to be pretty difficult.
Yeah.
So really need Isma to then step up and be that vocal leader.
Which maybe he has a better chance to do in a new team environment, right? You never know how that refresh is going to be for people. It's something we talked about with Yike joining KC, right? For the first time in his career, he's not surrounded by veterans. So it's just easier to have a voice, even if it's still not a role that he maybe was immediately comfortable with. Although I've heard he's doing well now. And also for Fnatic, it's like as much as Fnatic did shit the bed in that game 5 versus KC, right? And did have a lot more scrappy games. And we are looking long-term at like, is this team a contender for the title? In the meantime, they're still an obvious top 3, top 4 team in our league, right? And they still have an incredibly strong jungle mid duo. Is it annoying that they don't show up in big games sometimes? Yeah, but I'm not taking Jackie's Isma over Raz or Humanoid. Like, that's tough.
Definitely not.
That's, I think long term, you really, if you're Jackie's, you got to be the best, best checked mid laner in the league, but you're not there yet. And Humanoid, even with the oopsies, even with some, some goofy ass games last split, it's like still, I would be betting on Humanoid every single time. So I think this is a tough way to start the season for GX. I hope for their sake and the mental front and the fact that it's best of 3 that they can like have a good showing. I don't think it's impossible. I guess the question I would have for you guys, is it more likely that GX beat Fnatic or that MKOI beat KC?
In the first BO.
And the first in those
I think MKOI
yeah.
beating KC.
is more likely.
Yeah. Because I think MKOI should be looking better than they did last split, just with the same roster and more practice coming into the split. And I think KC, it's like always the classic whenever you go to an international to underperform the first few weeks. While I don't see a reason why Fnatic would be worse, while GX should just on paper be worse.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, I think whenever you see Movistar KOI, I think there is always that chance of an upset because they can't just be so explosive in the early game. And like, if that, sometimes they just roll good twice in a row, right? And then you can take that win.
Yeah.
But I think for Giant X, it's systemic issues and how they approach stuff, which is a much more difficult thing to fix, including then replacing one of the most important parts of your team, which is in the jungle, and how that then slots into everything else. So I think for Giant X, they are also going to need time to find their footing with this new change. So I just don't see them coming in and being able to take down Fnatic on day one.
I agree. It's tough. I think there's a lot of fighting for who's going to make it into playoffs in terms of who's going to get that 5th, 6th slot. Because last season was so hard to... It was a scrap there at the bottom. But Fnatic remain a top team, even if they're falling a bit short in those playoffs. I think it's something that's going to have to be respected. And to be honest with you, got a lot of weird matchups this week. A lot of matchups where I think teams are going to look to reset some expectations. And I'm not sure what the next most interesting one is. I guess it's just a return to the battle of top teams, which is the matchup that KOI played before G2, in case you weren't aware. The final matchup of day one, which is G2 versus MKOI, which feels... Despite our excitement for MKOI potentially beating KC, I would guess that you still favor G2 there.
Yeah, I definitely favor G2. I think beating KC and KC having like a bad first few weeks is definitely reasonable, while G2, I feel like they should have just come hit the ground running, because you're coming off a really like annoying 3-0 loss where all the players have still been perma-grinding solo queue, perma-grinding scrims. So I think G2 for sure. Didn't take that.
I agree. I'm also like, sorry, I do agree. I think I'm also just curious as to what G2 do look like.
Yeah.
Because I think we did see, there was definitely issues. Obviously, like, I don't think Caps had the best of splits. I think Lebrov, unfortunately, didn't have the best of times. When it came to the later portion of playoffs, I think he did have some good moments, but it's how have they made that system work well together? Which is like looking at, for me, their mid game has kind of been their biggest issue. Like, I think when I looked at G2 previously, it was like they always seemed to have some funky ward that was in place that they'd be able to TP to, that they'd be able to move in off of, like for Broken Blade or something. They'd have someone in a side lane that is always creating pressure. And I just don't feel like that's what we've seen from G2 anymore. Like, it feels like they've kind of had this fallback plan of, oh, we're losing, we will just put Caps in a side lane and hopes he gets enough resources to just carry the game. And if that doesn't work, well, GG, it's over. I want to see some of that magic again. And I definitely want to see that some of that early game cohesion as well, which started to kind of slip away last year, but doesn't really seem to be there anymore either. So I think it's several portions of G2's game that I want to see them step up on. And I think they're going to have every single one of them sort of coming into this? No. But I definitely think it's starting to see flashes of that I do want to see if they're going to be able to compete with KC again.
Yeah. I think it is also important to note that, like, apart from the final BO5, G2 became the best team in the league.
After like 2 weeks, right? Like week 1, rough, week 2, still question marks, and then week 3 onwards, which I mean, we only had a 3-week regular season. It was like, oh, this is the best team again.
Yeah. So I think like reports of their demise were greatly exaggerated, and I don't think like that they had a bad split. Or
bad in the context of their G2 and you expect them to win everything.
Yeah, but not in the sense that bad
of,
in that when they're coming into this split, they're not going to be top 1, top 2, top 3, you know?
And I think to Dagda's point, it's like the goalpost for them remains quite high.
But that's the conversation, right? It's like, I think when I look at KC and G2, this is not a conversation of do they make top 3. It's a conversation of how do you do internationally, right?
But to be fair,
or that growth that you can see you compete on an international level, right?
Like, they don't need to be the best team in the league to beat KOI, you know? They just need to be better than KOI.
Yeah, but my point is not just about KOI. It's what do we see from G2 that shows me what has been working for them behind the scenes.
Rob right here classic sports dad energy.
Just like yapping.
Yeah, beating the team you're expected to beat, not enough. Rob wants more.
Yeah.
Rob is not willing to
We
wait.
were asked about the
Rob,
specific
Rob
matchup.
is not willing to wait. I'm not. No, this is not me dragging you.
Sorry,
I'm just saying.
sorry that I came from a league that actually won international
Oh
tournaments.
my
all right?
God,
So-
you are a part of this league now.
Exactly, and I wanna see
You're
better.
a person with us.
Okay. All I'm saying, no, this is my point is just that I like that you're always focused on the next step. I think it's good to it's important to look at the individual matchups sometimes too, but it's also nice to be like, look, you beat MKOI. That's great. And that's sick. That's a small achievement, but I don't know. It's a bit of I love
I mean,
it.
that's fair. But if you ask us who's going to win G2 or MKOI,
But it's also like I think the really cool and interesting part for me when I watch League of Legends is like seeing the cool map play that I wouldn't have spotted in the moment. And I think that's what I fell in love watching G2 games doing was like seeing this is sick. Look at this like weird timer that Mickey has gone on to get this ward that then Broken Blade is going to TP to it. Or like, Caps is TP to a side to push this wave, which now sets up a point of contention on the top side that the other team has to answer for. And I think that's the parts of League of Legends that I love is these like small mind games that are constantly happening on the map. And I think that's where when Duffman was added to G2, they really stepped up. And I think it's something that like Hanwha uses incredibly well. I think it's something that when BLG are on form, we really do see them use. And I think that is sick. And I want to see both KC and G2 get back to that. And especially when we saw that from G2 and from the players that are there, that's what I want to get from this roster again. Because then I can actually go, holy crap, like LEC as a whole is leveling up. And I do think that teams like KC and G2, and I'm hoping Fnatic now with Duffman can hit those levels. And we suddenly see this like renaissance in the way that LEC play is.
All I'm saying is earlier we talked about international success being number 2 in the world because LCK seems tough to topple. So
yeah.
all your confidence in coming from a winning region, we may be able to restore it to you.
Sure.
Built on the bodies of the region that you came from, Rob.
Exactly. It's the only way to do it. You know? One must die so the other can live.
We'll
you
take
know?
it. Yeah, you know what? We'll take it. I'm not here to ask questions. But G2 are beating MKOI, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, what a perfect note to end on. This has been episode 5 of... So right before Spring Week 1, it's Friday. The show starts tomorrow. Again, this Saturday, day 1 of the LEC Spring is 3 back-to-back best of 3. So that will be 2 p.m. Berlin time start. Otherwise, any normal 2 best of 3 day will be a 5 p.m. start. So that is Sunday and Monday. Be sure to tune in. I'm Drakos and Dagda, Jackspektra. Thank you guys so much for watching. And we'll see you next week and this weekend for more LEC content and coverage.
Bye.